and welcome to Your Choice 2020 General Election coverage on HOMTV. I'm Brandy Yates, and joining me for this candidate interview is Jayme Taylor, who is a nonpartisan Okemos School Board candidate. Jayme, thank you so much for being here, and at this time, we'd like to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself to the audience.
Hi, thank you for having me, Brandy. As you mentioned, my name is Jayme Taylor, and I'm running for Okemos School Board Trustee this November. And we've been Okemos residents for the last 14 years. And we've got 3 boys, 2 of which are Okemos alum, and our little guy is in 7th grade.
Okay, thank you. Each Okemos School Board candidate will be asked a standard list of 10 questions. We will get started with question number 1. What qualifications do you bring to the Okemos School Board?
So as I mentioned, we've lived here for 14 years, and I've been very active in the school district all 14 years. I've served as president as both the Okinawa Middle School and Okemos High School parent groups for many years. And I've served on 2 of the strategic planning committees and also the bond committee back in the bond that passed in 2018 so graciously by our community. And then just in general, the advocating that I've had to do for my kids, all of them have had a variety of different struggles in school with learning disabilities and ADHD. And it's taught me a lot. It's a lot of work, making sure that their educational needs are being met. And it's also a voice and a perspective that I really think needs to make sure that is heard and recognized on our school board.
Question number 2. What do you think are the top 2 services that need the most attention to provide the biggest benefit for students and parents?
Services. That's a tricky one because I'm not sure exactly what everybody considers a service. From my perspective, definitely the special education resources and services that are offered to that population. That's really important, making sure that all of the services, I guess is the word that I'll use, they're entitled to by law are actually being offered. But then also all of the extracurriculars, the athletics, the clubs, the opportunities for students to be involved in school outside of academics. And then I would also say the mental health and emotional well-being services, counselors, intervention resources to make sure that we are addressing all of our students as a whole, not just their academic needs.
Question number 3, and it is a long one. I'm going to prep you.
Okay.
Remote learning has become the new normal in many school districts due to the COVID-19 pandemic. How do you think this will impact the future of education? And if elected, what steps would you take to help ensure adequate resources are available and student success continues no matter the circumstance?
That is a very interesting question. And it's one that I've actually thought a lot about myself. I always try to say from challenges, there's growth and good things. And one of the things that I would love to see happen is the embracing of virtual education and the quality of a virtual education that may supersede and extend beyond the pandemic. There are a lot of students that struggle with being in a classroom for a variety of reasons, and that the school environment can be a place of anxiety and stress. And how could we potentially support those students through a virtual type of an opportunity? Maybe not all the time, but is it an option to potentially enhance what we offer to our students? I definitely think it's worth considering and keeping our options open and our minds open to that potential as well. And I would certainly be an advocate to do just that.
Question number 4. Please comment on how you believe the Okemos School District and the school board should approach new or continued diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts.
That's a big one for sure. And Okemos has a very good equity plan right now that they are continuously working on. I firmly believe that it's never work that's done, and it's a committee that should always be in existence. Just like being open-minded about the potential for virtual learning, I think that we would be remiss as a district if we didn't recognize that there's always going to be equity issues in a variety of forms, and we should always be working on that. We should always be listening to our students, to our parents. We should make sure that we have things in place that make our families and our students and even our staff feel heard, and that if they're feeling as if they're not being heard, that there's a safe way for them to feel comfortable bringing their concerns, whether it be to the administration, to the board, to teachers. And bias training is definitely, I think, something that needs to be required for all of us, our staff, our board, everybody. And like I said, I also believe that it's continuing work. It should never be considered done. Our equity plan should always be in review to make sure that we're meeting the needs of everybody.
Question number 5. Please address policies regarding safety for kids at school that combat issues such as bullying, violence, and drug use.
Could you repeat the beginning part of that question again?
Please address policies regarding safety for kids at school that combat issues such as bullying, violence, and drug use.
I think policies definitely need to exist. And we need to send a very clear message within our policies that bullying is not acceptable. But also how we actually educate and train our staff and how to handle when bullying may be witnessed. And it also goes almost back to the equity issue of making sure that our students feel safe and able to bring concerns of bullying to somebody, and something will be done. Their voice will be heard. But also how we educate our students about bullying and the environment that we want to create to make sure that everybody feels safe. Just like with equity, it's never going to go away. And we always have to make sure that we're addressing it and we're hearing if there's cases of it, and making sure that our policies actually address it and don't just sugarcoat it or brush it under the rug.
Question number 6. How can the school district balance the budget and meet the needs of its students and the core curriculum?
How do they balance the budget? Well, that is a very complicated question because so much of our funding comes from the state. So our ability to balance our budget really determines how much funding we get from the state as well. I think that Okemos has done a phenomenal job with the resources that we have of balancing the budget, of being fiscally responsible. And I don't see that ever changing. I've been very proud, even through really difficult times when our economy, and we had to make really, really difficult cuts. It was well thought out. It's never easy to make those kind of cuts to balance the budget, but sometimes they're necessary. And, you know, there's also a piece of making sure that we're doing our part to rally our lawmakers, to make sure that our lawmakers are providing our schools with the funding that they need to adequately provide services. So there's that piece of it too, that I like to use my voice in those words, or in those ways. So making sure that from the state level, we're also advocating for the funding that we need too. So it's kind of a two-pronger.
Question number 7. What role do you believe extracurricular activities such as athletics and the arts play in education?
Huge, huge. It's about a well-rounded student and a well-rounded child, and not everybody is academically strong, not everybody's an athlete, not everybody's artistic. There is something for everybody, a way for them to feel successful and well-rounded. So we need to make sure that we have all of those opportunities for all of our students. And even with the COVID and the pandemic and reinstating athletics, you know, there's a lot of our students that are missing some of the extracurriculars that feel like they gives them purpose. and they're missing out, and it's no different than the athletes that were missing out on their sports. So we need to make sure that we have those opportunities for everybody.
Question number 9. Oh, I'm sorry. Question number 8. What do you believe is the school board's role in student and or faculty disciplinary action?
It's definitely a partnership. I mean, the policies that the board and the administration puts forth need to be adhered to by everybody. That's one thing as I'm running, making sure that there's consistency in language, consistency in messaging across buildings, of course, age appropriate, across the district, across staff. I feel it's really important that it's not a wishy-washy type of a thing. You know, discipline needs to be administered fairly and not case by case. Well, case by case with the circumstances, of course, but it can't be arbitrary. It can't be subjective. And making sure from the board level and the administration that policies are put in place that are very clear for buildings and staff to actually administer. And then, of course, there are those extreme cases that it has to come to before the board to make the final decision because it's an extreme case. But that consistency across the district is really important because so much tension and apprehension and disappointment can come because discipline isn't fair. Or we've all heard the stories of students getting away with things because one teacher enforces it and another teacher doesn't. And I do think that needs to be in the back of the mind of everybody because that's not okay.
Question number 9. Please address where Oakmas stands with college readiness.
From a four-year university college readiness perspective, I think they're phenomenal. I mean, a lot of people seek out Okemos School District because we do such a great job of preparing our students for college. Do I think that there could be some work with those that are not four-year university bound? Absolutely. You know, making sure that we're providing and guiding our students that may not be college four-year university bound at what other options may be out there, trade schools, community colleges, making sure that we're helping students have a plan that may not be on the track to go to a university. I think we do have work to be done in that regard, and I will certainly help make sure that we're doing that.
Question number 10 and our final question of our standard list. What do you consider the top 2 challenges facing the Okemos School District today and in the future?
Well, prior to the state budget yesterday, I would have definitely said funding. But it does look like that our legislature really stepped up for our public schools, and that's fantastic. So just making sure that we're continuing to be fiscally responsible. And of course, that equity piece is so important. Just making sure that we're hearing, particularly our students, and what their experiences are in our buildings and with our staff, and making sure that we're continuing to do the work to create an equitable environment and a supportive environment and a safe environment. I think that will help with the emotional well-being and mental well-being of our students as well. Especially when we get them back in the classroom, there's going to be another adjustment period, and our youth have come through a really challenging time, and making sure that their academic, social, emotional, and mental well-being are all being considered and addressed, I think is going to be really key to making the smooth transition and helping them through the challenging times that we've come through.
Thank you. At this time, we have finished the standard list of questions with Jayme Taylor, who is a candidate for the Okemos School Board. We have about 10 minutes left in our half hour. I do have some follow-ups if you don't mind.
No, not at all.
Okay, so
I'm surprised. I usually can fill up time, no problem.
You mentioned earlier about advocating for your own children's education, and you've touched on it several times about mental health and well-being. Can you elaborate on some of the things that you've had to advocate for, and what work do you believe the district as a whole needs work in terms of special education and mental health well-being?
Yes. So basically, I have really had to make sure that, like I had mentioned before, that the resources and the supports and the interventions that we're entitled to, we're actually getting. I did learn that that's not always the case. And it can be overwhelming. You get a book that's this thick when you have a child in special education, and I've actually reached out to the Ingham ISD. This was, over several years. Our oldest is going to be 25, so I've been doing it a long time, and making sure that I think the middle school years are really challenging, and the way that our middle school special education services are, they're not horrible by any means. Like, we're grateful to be in the district that we're in, and there's a reason we're here. But I do think that there could be some improvements at the middle school level. My boys all struggled tremendously in middle school. It's a tough time of year, or time in a youth's life period. My boys, typically, school is not a place that they see much success or get much joy from. So finding those opportunities within the school day for them to witness success, like maybe electives, because those are classes they really want to take. And in the middle school level, if you need interventions, you usually have to give up your electives, and that can be tough. And the pace at which the curriculum is given can make it really challenging for students that struggle to keep up. So that 5th through 8th, 6th through 8th time period is really challenging. At the high school level, they go into adaptive classes. So the classes are a little smaller. They're designed to provide a little bit more, maybe, support within the classroom. And I found that once my older boys got into high school, it got a little easier. And there's just an opportunity, those are really critical years in middle school. And it's impacted their emotional and mental well-being. When my boy goes to school and he experiences more frustration than he does success at home, then I have a huge emotional, I have to try to rebuild his confidence, and it's really, really challenging. So making sure that we have those supports, and that's why I've always said I've learned a lot through the years, and wanting to be that voice for others. I've always said someday I will. Got to get my kids through school first, and then I will. And then I started thinking, well, my kids are almost through school. I think I might miss the opportunity if I don't do it now. So we've been through so much with learning struggles, and I just really hope that I can be that voice and support for others.
Thank you for elaborating on that. At this time, we'd like to give you an opportunity to provide your closing statement to the viewers and the voters.
So again, thank you for this opportunity. You asked some really good and some pretty tough questions. I am really, really looking forward to helping continue shape and guide the future of Okemos Public Schools, and it would be my honor to serve in this capacity for the next 4 years, alongside some amazing trustees. And we are an amazing school district, and we are always striving for excellence, and I don't see that changing. I've said that there's always work to be done, though, and I believe that. We can always be striving for excellence in some way or another. And I really look forward and will be humbled and honored for people to elect me to this position and continue to shape this amazing district that we have.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for watching this candidate interview with Jayme Taylor, who is a candidate for the Okemos School Board. I'm Brandy Yates, inviting you to watch live general election night coverage on Tuesday, November 3rd, right here on HOMTV. Thanks for watching.